Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the seventh session of the Pimento Business Development Club. If you don't already know me, I'm Paddy Woods. I am the director of Pimento Fuse, which is a new business consultancy built to help agencies solve and re-energize their marketing new business activities so they can have better growth from the back of it. Now, if you haven't been on previous calls, please do use the chat box to ask questions, and I'll bring you into the call after this conversation that I'm going to have with Marcus. Now, today's session is all about that dreaded repitch that everyone hates, but we have to go through on a regular basis, and actually about the potential impact it has on your business. Over the course of the time you're working with a client, you've got to think that client's been targeted by your competitors. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry if I do sneeze. I'll bear with you, just typically at this moment in time. And they're showing the different thinking, and they're showing unique products, and they're starting to build relationships with these clients as your relationship is ongoing with them. Therefore, it makes it harder for the incumbent to stay on top of their relationship, especially as relationships have their ups and downs. So today we're going to really explore how we can help you stay on top of that and win the repitch and cement your position in front of your clients' minds. And joining me, I have the fantastic Marcus Brown, who is the founder of the Great Pitch Company. Welcome, Marcus. Do you want to do a quick intro to yourself?
Thank you very much indeed, Patrick. Delighted to be here, and thank you everybody for joining. I know everyone's incredibly busy. So briefly, Marcus Brown, I'm the CEO and founder of the Great Pitch Company. We essentially help agencies to win more. We have two elements to the business. Great Now, which is working with agencies on live pitches, or indeed many live re-pitches, to help people to convert them using our decades worth of experience and overseeing hundreds of pitches so that we can stack the odds in your favor to help you win. That's Great Now. The other area of our business, very briefly, Great Forever, which is basically two things: consultancy and training. We do training across all types of business development that you may require, from low level to CEO, 1 hour, 2-day sessions, whatever it might be, all based on the client's need. And the other area within Great Forever is consultancy. So we have clients who come to us and say, look, we keep coming second. What are we doing wrong? And we come in, look under the hood, and advise you how to align your business development culture, processes, and people so that you ultimately win more and you waste less resources. Because after all, pitching is incredibly resource hungry. So that's what we do in a short intro.
Brilliant, thank you. And just to reiterate, the format today is we're going to be talking about 30 minutes for a Q&A, and then we're going to open up the floor. So we'll bring people in after this sort of conversation. So Marcus, let's get started. So from your experience, what are the catalysts for repitches?
Well, I think there are probably several, aren't there, that I can think of. There's procurement-led pitches. You've got new director, new marketing director, new client team members who join. Could be that there's a scope change, or they're launching a new product or new service. So those three are kind of ones that are outside of our control as an agency, aren't they? The other ones are more in our control. One is, how well are we doing in terms of running the existing business? So are we helping the client to achieve the results that they need? And the second one might be, of course, performance issues of the agency. So, all agencies have ups and downs in their relationships, and that certainly was in the wheelhouse of something that the agency can work on to resolve. So I think those are some of the catalysts.
And it's funny, I'm just going to add another anecdote. I've been hearing, I'm working with an agency and we're in the middle of a pitch, and one of the reasons why the client is pitching is they don't feel the agency can take them to the next future, and the next iteration of what their business is going to be. And I think that's so it's how do we stay on top of that and look at the sort of different ways of sort of making sure that you're always evolving your business to meet what the demands are of agencies as well.
Yes. Okay, I'll talk about that in a bit. Go on, yeah.
Awesome.
Keep going.
So in terms of being the incumbent, actually, on a repitch, is it in your opinion, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Because I think it's am I breaking up?
It's brilliant. I like repitches are fantastic. You know, I am an optimistic type, but I think if you are the incumbent, you've got a fantastic opportunity. You know, you know, hopefully you've got a healthy relationship. You can prove the results you've been having for the client. You know the client, you know their business. You have got a leg up versus someone who's coming in and not knowing the client or the agency or the business. Having said that, of course, the real issue with repitches is that same knowledge and insights that you have can work as a problem for you, because you, as an agency, you begin to self-edit as you're preparing for the pitch, going, oh no, we can't do that because we tried that before, or, you know, sometimes that knowledge inhibits you from doing something that's more out of the box, more different, that an agency that hasn't been working with the client won't know about. So it's definitely a good thing, but you have to understand, you have to be careful that you don't fall into the trap of your knowledge becoming a problem. And you know, we all do it. I mean, you'll be pleased to hear I've won lots of pitches, but repitches most. But there's sometimes you don't win. And let me talk about one that we didn't win, which was for a telecom mobile phone network. This one actually was wasn't in the UK, doesn't matter. But the team told me that we had a fantastic relationship with them. This was a procurement-led pitch. You know, we got the brief, we created a fantastic solution for them. It was just amazing, but we didn't win. And I was like, well, what on earth happened there? And so I went to see the procurement team afterwards, who I'd built a relationship with during it. And they said, well, you know, you didn't address the problems we have in our relationship. You didn't acknowledge them, you didn't address them, and you presented, you know, the Rolls-Royce solution, whereas really we were just looking for a reliable Toyota, or whichever brand you want to call, and you didn't address that. And so there's an example of us, people not being honest with themselves, not addressing the issues, not telling you that there are issues and what the skeletons are in the cupboard. You've got to find those out and make sure that you address them. I mean, fortunately, I have won lots of other pitches, you know, like repitches, like L'Oreal in France, Italy, Adobe, B2B ones like Caterpillar, Visa, and so on. But there is an example of one where we just didn't get it right. And the other learning I had from that was they didn't offer a face-to-face briefing. So they did a really in-depth written brief, but not a face-to-face briefing. And I've now resolved that if you can't have a face-to-face briefing, virtual or in person, then we won't pitch for it. We've made that decision, and it's just not worth it. You're going to waste time, because you can read things in a brief one way and other people can read it another way, and there may be things that you're not getting to, as we didn't get to on that particular example. But overall, I think being the incumbent's a good thing.
And actually, just taking that on it, which is a sort of looking at why an agency should pitch or not, or repitch or not. Because I remember when Leader, which is now Saatchi Saatchi, they were talking about when they were repitching for Mini, and they actually decided not to go for it, even though they had had a 5-year relationship with them. And the reason why was the commercial terms that Mini were putting on them meant it was just not profitable, and there was no margin. They were going to break even, so they decided not to go for it. So how should an agency decide whether they repitch or not?
So to pitch or not to repitch is the question today. And of course, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure all agencies do some sort of qualification as a management team, but we would really encourage people to, if they haven't got one, to have a scorecard, a repitch scorecard. You should certainly have one for pitching in general, and you have a slightly different one for a repitch scorecard, where you need to look at things like client profitability, as you just mentioned, client relationship. You should look at the revenue opportunity. What's the catalyst? Is it statutory or another reason? What are the availability of your resources? Because there's no point doing something like this, in half measures. You either have to be all in and commit, or you don't do it. Other things on the scorecard would be the opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. Items like that, you should assign a score to each one of those, 1 for low, 5 for high, say, add them up. Now, of course, when one is filling these things in, you can cheat and score them higher or lower as you want. That's not the point. The point is to get to some sort of score and then have a healthy debate amongst your senior management team as to whether everybody is fully in. And if you are, you then need to commit to it, because, as we all know, pitches take a huge amount of resource. I don't know if you saw that article, or anybody's talked about the report from the USA that was done by the trade associations there, 4As and ANA. And they did research amongst clients and agencies on pitching. And they identified that the average cost of a pitch in the US is $200,000. Now, that includes people's time, as it should do. Sometimes when people say how much does a pitch cost, they only think of out-of-pocket costs, which is silly. You need to think of the hours and days and weeks that people put into it, those costs. So in the US, the average is $200,000. Is it the same here? I don't see why it should be that different. It might be slightly lower. But interestingly, in the US, if you're an incumbent, the cost is double. So it costs an average of $400,000. So the point is, if you're going to do an incumbent pitch where you're going to need to re-win the client all over again, it's hugely hungry in terms of resources. So make sure you've got the available resources and the determination to commit to win them all over again.
Actually, it's funny. I'm there. Well, I was listening to Dare when I worked at ISBA, and he was saying that it costs about 175,000 in the UK to pitch. This is back in 2014, and it took about 3 years to recover that money.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're basically breaking even by the end of it.
Yeah. There are other things, of course, you're contributing to the overall cost base and stuff like that. But nevertheless, it's really important that people measure that and get a sense of it. It also helps you not push the button to go too easily. If you know it's going to cost, wow, this is like writing a check for, let's say it's £50,000. It's big money that you could be investing in your existing client as well. So anyway, existing business and growing that.
Exactly. And I think actually with that cost, then this goes down to you've done your scorecard, you've got the cost. What are the chances of winning a repitch? I know Stuart's just put some stats in from the USA, and I think it'd be interesting to explore that.
Yes. So to be honest, the USA is one piece of decent research, okay, that unfortunately we don't have the same in the UK as yet. But we are getting it in other trade associations around Europe are doing it increasingly. And in fact, the Great British Company is partnering with the Italian Trade Association to identify the cost of the pitch and also how likely you are to win a repitch. But over the years, it'd be interesting. Well, trouble is everyone's seen that result from Stuart. Generally speaking, if you say to people, are you more likely to win a repitch or less? Most people would say you're less likely to win, okay? The research tells us, as Stuart's pointed out, that in the States, 2/3 of repitches are retained by the incumbent, or they win the business all over again. Now, why might that be? I think clients are less likely these days to just invite someone out of politeness. if they really truly believe the agency has no chance of winning, then the clients don't have the bandwidth to sit through a waste of time. And so I think clients are being more honest, generally speaking. I think agencies are getting better at qualifying. I think there's a long way to go. The power of no is so important when it comes to pitching. And thirdly, I think in years gone by, new and shiny was often took precedence over tried and tested. And these days, with the complexity of marketing and communications, changing agencies is a troublesome affair. It creates an enormous amount of work. So I think clients are doing it less, and that might be why the averages seem to be going up, and there seem to be data that's pointing to repitches are in the US, as they say, 60%, 66%, whatever it is, 2/3 are being retained by their existing agency.
I think actually just another anecdote I've got, which is I remember when I was working at Dentsu and we pitched for Lego, so we were repitching and trying to save ourselves. The relationship had died. It was £215 million. And I don't think we were sensible enough to look at it and say, actually, we have got no chance of winning. And they took us through to the final three, but they even said, you're not going to win. So it's up to you whether you pitch or not. So we spent a lot of money. And I think part of it was to solve 2P problems, etc., that we went for it. But the wrong decision making and waste and resource waste.
Yeah.
So, and actually, that's to bring that into the next question, which is, when should you start working on a repitch?
The moment you win the business. So, I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but we have, a few things to think about. For example, one is make sure you're aware of a client's pitching cycle. So some aren't very clear, but there are some clients where it's really clear. They repitch every 3 years, or 5 years, or whatever it might be. So make sure you know that and you plan for that. Secondly, it always amazes me how many people don't have a relationship matrix. It's really simple. So for a client, you have the different departments across the top. So sales, marketing, procurement, maybe it's their finance people, maybe it's sales, a broader suite of client job titles. And then down the side, you have what level they are. So you'd have CMO, then you might have brand manager and so on. And you have that same for procurement, senior people, less senior people. And you plot there, use a traffic light. Red is terrible, green is good, yellow, orange is warning. Plot those on the matrix and you quickly identify, if there are any gaps. So, for example, you haven't met the most junior person of the marketing team for whatever reason, then get on and do it. Or secondly, if you've got any reds around, that helps you focus where you need to improve the relationship and resolve stuff. And obviously you should review that as part of your annual planning, maybe quarterly as well, when you're reviewing the business, so that you are trying to do everything you can to avoid the repitch. And then the third area is go on the front foot. And we did this once when I was working at Wunderman. And it was, I admit, it's a big global client. It was Microsoft. But we repitched every year. Now, don't get me wrong. We didn't ask them to put the business out to tender. But we worked to their annual planning cycle. So, in summer, they start planning for the year after. And we got into the habit of asking them in the summer, what are the key challenges for the next year? And then over the summer, we would work on a pitch style presentation to their senior management, addressing their biggest concerns for the year ahead. And we treated it like a pitch. We mobilized resources. It was very proactive. and you know, it helped us re-win the client every year. So when should you start? As soon as you get the business. Don't wait for the brief to come in, whatever you do.
And it's quite interesting. I think on that restart, it's actually just it's building those relationships up front. And I like that idea with the Wonderman side of things. Not many agencies, I think agencies are so invested once they want a client embedding that in, that they forget
Yeah.
about actually looking at the longer term gain.
So if they did less pitches, concentrated more of that saved resource on they're retaining their existing business, it's more profitable, better for the spirit of the agency, and definitely the right way to go.
And it enables you to keep in touch with the senior management.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is often a problem. We hear all the time, don't we? Agencies saying they're not high enough up the food chain. Well, there's a way of doing it that can be very successful.
And what I suppose to bring that in is actually taking that Wonderman model. Actually, you solved a particular problem, but what are the particular challenges of repitches versus ordinary pitches? Because they are they're unique in their own way in what how you approach them.
I mean, the obvious one is that you're trying to not mess up on the existing business whilst you're pitching for it, because we've all been there. You know, as you're trying to get the pitch ready, something catastrophic happens because you took the eye off the ball, because you're trying to do so many things at the same time. And, you know, sometimes that can be, like it shoots yourself in the foot, doesn't it? And so we have an approach now, which is if you're repitching, and I know some of you will be coming from agencies where you might be 10 people and not 50 people or 100 people. Or even if you're 10 people, the point is you have two teams. And those teams may be just another person, but you have one person who focuses on making sure the existing business is run perfectly without any slip-ups during the pitch process. And you have someone else or another team working on it. Of course, they talk and they're in communication, but you don't do what many agencies do, which is try to make the existing team to repitch as well, doubling their workload, most likely to not succeed, I would say. So definitely I would have two teams. And then you know, that incumbency issue of the fact that you know so much, you have to address it. And the way we do it is we present two options. One is the option that we think as the incumbent is the right way. And then you have another option, which is the wild one, the wild card, something completely different to what you would normally do. And then what that does is that reassures the client that, you know how to do the right one, but you've also got the capability, the team, the knowledge, the interest to do something that's completely out there. And then the client, you can be reassured to choose you. You know, if they want to go wild, well, then they've got an option. If they want to stay safe, they've got that option too. That's where your incumbency can really help you.
Yeah, that sounds a great story. When I was working with Coca-Cola and we're pitching for their below the line side of things. It was for the World Cup activation, and the incumbent played it safe and said, "This is what you should do." And then sort of wild card came in and blew them away with this option, which they said, "We're never going to be able to do because it's unaffordable, but we like the idea and the thinking, the madness where you're going."
Yeah.
And so they said, "Right, we're going to match the two together and sort of work a relationship." So in a way, the incumbent won but lost, and the winner got the sort of second agency got a foot in the door. And I think he's still now working with Coca-Cola.
Well,
and
there we go.
taking over more of the work. So it's an interesting way of playing it. So I think taking on that sort of those challenges, what makes a great repitch?
Well, there's one word that goes with the word repitch. Whenever you say repitch, think reinvention. I mean whole-scale reinvention, not a little bit of tinkering here and there. So, for example, team. You know, there's bound to be some people you want to keep on the team, but whatever you do, bring in new faces. bring in new job roles, depending on the industry you work in, head of retail media, head of e-commerce, data specialist, whatever it might be. Find new people, new faces, new job titles, new to come in. And of course, you could have expert panels as well, that you could identify some people who you might have as a consultant that give you insight into that particular category, and you show them as new. So reinvent the team, reinvent your offering. So if maybe the brief is only asking for this, of course you have to present that, but go with something else as well. So, it might be that you're a creative agency. Well, team up with a PR agency or within the Pimento family, of course, and you can go back with a dual solution. When you do that, it reframes the whole pitch. It doesn't neatly fit into scorecards, and you've gone back with a bigger solution, a bigger idea. If you work with data, package up a new way of showing that data, reinvent the offering, whether it's a service or a product that you do, in partnership with your existing business. Let me give you an example. I worked on a very big pitch in France. It was with an agency, and it was their biggest client. And it was their biggest client because it's the biggest advertiser in France. And they had this business for 15 years. And they had managed to, for 15 years, bat away procurement. Used all the relationships, everything they could. They managed to keep procurement out, but they knew procurement were going to win at some point, and there was going to be a repitch. So they were very smart, and it wasn't necessarily a cheap solution, but when you know it's the biggest advertiser in France, you can understand why. But they came up with this idea to hire a management consultancy firm to come in and do an audit of what makes a great media agency these days. What are the requirements that are needed? And they did this 12 months before the pitch. The consultants went into the client, they went into the agency, they wrote their big report that had a number of things they needed to do, and they implemented those. So by the time the pitch came, they had invested in the relationship, reinvented it, and reinvented themselves, the way of working and everything. So they were seen as a very best-in-class agency before the pitch even happened. Now, we're not the size of being able to afford whoever it was, a McKinsey, but you can take the idea, find someone to come in. I did it once when I was CEO of a 50 agency strong. We got one of the consultants to come in and go to the client, interview the client, understand what's working well, the areas we needed to address. And it really helped bolster our relationship because it showed we cared. And of course, that's half the battle, isn't it? Showing you care. You can reinvent your compensation model. I was reading Ad Age the other day that was saying that independent agencies are stealing a march on network agencies by innovative compensation models. So you can think of, value-based pricing, not hours plus pricing. All the different ways that you can imagine about pricing. Do something different. They might not do it, but show that you're reinventing yourself. If procurement are involved, make friends with procurement. Some of the biggest pitches I've ever won were because procurement became our friends in the process. So we understood what procurement were after, and we positioned our pitch in a way that helped them achieve their goals as well as the goals of the marketing team. Reinvent your agency name, where you do the pitch. I was talking to someone the other day who was telling me about they pitch for Wrigley's, the gum, and instead of holding the pitch in the agency, they held it in a newsagent's just round the corner. They persuaded the newsagents to close for a day. I'm sure they paid them handsomely. They removed kind of the central aisle of the shop and put a meeting table in there, but they were surrounded by, newsagents, tobacconists, which was a very exciting place and helped them reinvent themselves. And then I guess finally, avoid the, we've pitched, it's all, whoo, hooray, sit back, pop open the champagne. Yes, send the client a handwritten card thanking them for their time and with a thought, but get to work immediately. How can you build upon the pitch presentation to show that hunger? And of course, there's a big difference between hunger and desperation. So you need to look hungry, but not desperate. Find the right way to do that and keep going, and your communications, contact strategy and the like. So yeah, there are some examples of what would make a great repitch in my eyes.
Fantastic. So this last couple of questions, and I'm going to open up the floor, and I've got one question to ask.
I'll be brief because we.
What's the worst repitch?
Oh God,
you've seen?
Well, there was that mobile phone network I told you about, which, by the way, as I went into the room, I thought I was just going to meet one procurement person, and in fact, she came with 5 others, and I introduced myself. Hello, I'm Marcus. And one of them, she said, "Hello, I'm Snow White." And I thought, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you." And I was like, "Did I?" I said, I was like perplexed, right? And I carried on meeting the other people around the room. All the time in my head was going, "Did she say her name was Snow White?" And I carried on, and to this day, I don't know why she said it, but she definitely said it. I think she was from Hungary. I thought maybe her name meant that. So I looked up her name and translated it to see if it, anyway, it wasn't. I think she was just doing it to throw me off. So that was one of the worst. When I first moved I worked for Saatchi Saatchi, and then I moved to Young and Rubicam, as it was then, or Rainey, Kelly, Campbell, Rolf Weinar, and we did a pitch for Eurostar, and it was the first time Eurostar were doing a central pitch. Up to then, they'd had agencies in Brussels, London, and Paris, and that was just terrible because there was no network governance. So the fighting between the offices was terrible, and they couldn't work out what one piece of creative work or 2 to present. So each office presented its own. It was like a pitch within a pitch. It was terrible. One of my best examples that I love, if I can just quickly say that, and then I'll shut up, is working on reinventing Procter and Gamble. Now, here's a pitch where we were told that we weren't going to win, but we still repitched, and we reinvented ourselves entirely, created a new name for the team, the agency, completely new products in terms of the way to analyze data, completely new people, and in the end, we won the business. In fact, we not only won it, we won a greater scope as well as a result of it, because of the fact we totally reinvented.
Brilliant. Marcus, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the floor. So I'm just going to go down the chat. And so the first question I come across is David. David, do you want to just ask your couple of questions?
Yeah. Hi, Marcus. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. I mean, there's always this question on pitching, repitching. Yeah. How many agencies should you pitch against? I heard horror stories of clients asking 15 agencies to pitch. I mean, I was on a pitch like that and we walked away. Is there a level at which you just turn around and say, red flag, walk away?
Yeah, and anything over 4, I would see as a red flag. You want to try and persuade the client to only do 3. Typically, it's going to be 4. If it's 5 and above, I don't think I would do it. And of course, Blair Enns, I don't know if any of you have heard of Blair Enns, he talks about pricing and pitching a lot. He's actually identified is that the more difficult you can be as an agency, going, actually, we're not going to pitch, you can work out whether the client's just got you in there as a number filler, or they really want you to pitch. So he would encourage you to be like, oh, I don't think we can do it. See what they say. And then if they say yes, then you say, well, I'm sorry, we can't pitch on that particular day. It would have to be this day. And then you really start to work out how much they want you to pitch. For the confident agencies amongst us, I'm sure.
My second question, and you touched upon it in on one of the earlier points, is agencies do need to have relationships with not just everybody wants to focus on the CMO, the marketing manager, the marketing director, but there's a senior guy that you've probably, I'll just call him Phil. You will have worked with him, Marcus, almost certainly. As he said to me, he would have a relationship. He'd see the CEO at least once a quarter. He'd have a relationship with the CFO. He knew the procurement team. I think too many agencies focus on the CMO type person. You want to know the whole team, because they're the ones that you want on your side when you come to pitching or repitching, whatever it might be. So my view is know all the C-suite. You can't go wrong. And very quickly, talking about great pitches, a long time ago, I think it was British Rail, a story that when they put it out for pitch, they went into, I can't remember who it was now, but basically they walked into reception, and the reception was full of newspapers, cigarette ends in ashtrays. The girl on reception was doing her fingernails or whatever it was, and it was all very shambolic. And after about 20 minutes, the client said, look, we're here, what's happened? And then the team walked out and said, well, this is how you treat your clients, and let's go and pitch to you. And I just thought, you've got to be really brave to do that, but they won the business.
Absolutely. They did. Yes. Great.
Brilliant.
Thank you, David.
On that agency number one, I don't know if anyone remembers Beiersdorf in about 2014. They invited 60 agencies to a briefing session for his below the line pitch, and they all turned up and they're like on the train going, are we all going to the same place? And I think it caused outcry. I want to bring in Jane Hunt, if that's okay, just to talk about the two pitches that you've recently been on.
Yeah, hi. So I know this is mainly about kind of repitching, but we've been in a few scenarios lately that kind of confused me. So we had a very big pitch for 3 brands at the beginning of the year. And we got the impression we were a shoo-in for this, that we were like the chosen agency. And given what kind of one of the directors had said to us before the pitch actually came out. And then as part of the pitch, obviously procurement were involved, and they had a specific budget. They didn't say that they wanted to save money as part of that, but when it actually got to giving us feedback, they said that the finances were off, and they said that other agencies came in under the budget and were actually offering them more. But nowhere in there did they say they wanted to save money. So from my perspective, I thought they just wanted to maximize the budget they had. So that's kind of where we went in. So off the back of that and learning kind of what happened there, we had another pitch, and I thought, well, that's their budget, and if procurement's involved, let's try and save them a little bit of money. So came in below, and then actually on the part of the pitch presentation, they were like, well, why haven't you given us an option at our budget? And I was a bit like,
yes,
well, because this is kind of what it costs to offer this as it is kind of thing. So I was a bit thrown, because I just feel like you can't win at the moment. It's really hard to gauge what specifically they're going to judge you on.
Yes, so I completely understand. But I guess the thing there is trying to really understand what is motivating procurement, because not all procurement people are the same. Some I've met are, and you all have met, are just ruthlessly focused on getting it for less, pay less, give us a discount back, or, they're like that. On the other end of the spectrum are the ones that really understand the value that can be added through an agency and are much more motivated by that, or finding much more effective ways of working together. So they can be very polar ends of the spectrum. And I guess with the benefit of hindsight, trying to really understand from the procurement people, if there are procurement involved both times, what was motivating them, to have that kind of conversation. Is value added important to you? how important is cost reduction? How important is smarter ways of working? So we take up less time on your team, of your team's resources, and so on and so on, is definitely worth doing. Make friends with procurement, even if that can be difficult sometimes.
Okay.
Another
So-
thing. So
Sorry, go on.
one other thing to add, there's option as well. Give different commercial options. So what you can get for your below budget, at budget, and above budget, so you can start to show where the opportunities lie, and you really want to push them to that middle ground, but actually or over budget, just so there's more opportunity for them.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you for your question. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Jane, you had another question you wanted to ask, I think, just as I jumped in, sorry.
I was going to say, so the second pitch we were involved in, we didn't have access to anyone on procurement. It was just kind of the key marketing team. In that respect, should we put any specific procurement questions to, the marketing team, or should we ask for some contact with procurement? How would you go about that?
Definitely ask for the contact. So the
Okay.
broader your contact can be, the better you can understand the motivations across the team. And sometimes the power lies in different places. Sometimes the power, we did a pitch and I got to know the procurement guy. And then afterwards, I got him along to come to a training event that I was holding. And he said, it was amazing. You just kept giving value away. We would ask and you would give it away. But we didn't have any power. The power was, the decision had been made by marketing. We had no power to change what they had chosen. And we then just went into what we do in procurement, which is, of course, to ask for things for less or more value or whatever. And you just kept giving it. And the more we asked, the more you gave. So we kept going until eventually they stopped. But just be careful of that's procurement are taught to do that. And they'll always say that everyone else was cheaper than you.
They do. Thank you. Dominic, do you want to jump on the call as well? Dominic Bradbury.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you, Dominic. And we can see you now.
You should be able to see me, yeah. We've just, in the process, we've just been through sort of, it's a pitch / repitch. It's a complex situation because it's an existing client of ours, but the scope has kind of changed. So a broader part of the business has been brought into sort of this pitch, if you want to call it that. But there've been a lot of unknowns and things we haven't been able to figure out or been told, and there is no indication on budget, no matter who we ask, whether it's through procurement or it's through the marketing team or IT or whatever it is. So it is one of those scenarios where we kind of going on gut, but it's quite difficult. And it's in another country, so it's in South Africa and we're based in the UK. So there's a flip side to it, rand, pound exchange and all of that. So it makes it a little bit tricky. But how would you handle a scenario where you aren't given a budget at all and there are unknowns?
So first of all, these would ring alarm bells for me. So, and I fully get, we've all got targets to make, bills to pay, mortgages to fund, and so the desire and temptation to do the pitch can be enormous. But the fact that you're not getting answers to some of these questions can ring alarm bells. Anyway, sometimes you don't know all of the answers. And so if you don't have an idea of a budget, I think, as Patrick had said earlier, I would present a range of budgets so that they have an understanding of what could be achieved on X, what could be achieved on Y, and what could be achieved on Z. And that, of course, the likely return on their investment, if you can put some kind of guesswork into that or actual empirical evidence if you can get it, but certainly try and flesh out the value that will be added as a result of doing that.
Cool.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Caroline, do you want to jump on, Caroline Ailing? Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I've got a situation where we've got a repitch that is being managed by a different intermediary than managed the first pitch. So what my question is, how do you go about navigating that relationship? Because the relationship is solid with the client. It's just now there's also another third party involved.
So, a couple of thoughts. One is ideally you would get to know the intermediary before the pitch happens. Of course, it's like prospecting. We have the phrase "never pitch to strangers." So ideally, your prospecting is so great that you've met the people before the pitch is called. Although, of course, that's not possible on every occasion. So here, let's assume you haven't got a pre-existing relationship with this consultant. I would try to build one. So often we see agencies are a little fearful of asking questions or sticking to what appears to be the process and the rules a little bit too much. So I would, and some agencies just don't care. They'll phone up, they'll go and see them, they'll build the relationship and so on. And if you're not doing it, someone else might be doing it. And so I would encourage you to try and build that relationship. At least try. If they say, no, you can't do that, well, what can you do? But at least try to build that relationship, meet them. Obviously, you have to be careful. You don't want to, you need to have, ideally it would be a meet. You can't go for lunch at this stage because that may look like you're trying to persuade them incorrectly. But a short meeting to find out about their business, how it works, any particular advice for you as the agency on this would be gratefully received. So I would pick up the phone, which again is a dying art, people phoning people as opposed to emailing, but definitely try that.
I'm just going to jump
you.
in. Knowing the background of media, if it's ubiquity, you're going to struggle. I shouldn't say that out loud, but
it's not. But thank you for that.
But the others are more open and more conversational. But ubiquity, you get killed by death. Spreadsheet. I shouldn't say that. I'm almost running out of time. I've got one which isn't about repitch, but it's about a positioning side of things. And Havas and Shell, Marcus, and Havas lost their B Corp status because they won Shell.
Yes.
Now it's an interesting one because that's the value between your ethics and your ethos and what you stand for to going and losing something because of that, and what you so is any advice or any thoughts about why they went there apart from the money, but actually is there a way to protect yourself and things like just a random thought that jumped into my head, which is there's an impact that's happened, and actually is this a thing that could come down the line?
So certainly agencies should think about the implications of pitching for more complicated brands, whether they might be different types of smoking product or alcohol or oil or and so on and so on. And they can have reputational issues for the business. Obviously Havas has lost its B Corp status, and that will impact some people's perception of them. It will impact employees, and given the war for talent that exists, that's something that they should consider. But I'm sure they would have considered it. And of course, whether we like it or not, the current way our businesses are set up is we're there to provide a profit and a return on investment. And that, is the first, rightly or wrongly, in terms of how people are managed and the business is evaluated on the stock market. Of course, that's changing. Thank goodness, ESG, environmental sustainability and better governance is making it more than just money. But obviously they decided that the money was too tempting and they went for it. But yeah, definitely think about the reputational issues that are associated with it. Should be on your scorecard.
Definitely. I think we're running out of time, so I think I'm going to wrap it up now. So I want to thank Marcus. Thank you so much for a fantastic session. I think I got a lot out of it, and I think it was really enlightening. So thank you very much. We are going to be posting our video of this on YouTube later this week. But also, if you want to get in touch with Marcus, do let me know, and I'm happy to make introductions for you as well. Just a couple of house notes. As you've seen, Teresa's just put some dates in the chat box, but next week, no, not next week, on the 25th of September is our next client-facing webinar, which is about exploring the rapidly evolving client social media landscape. We've also got lots of Pimento networking events happening. On the 19th of September in Glasgow with Material hosting that. On the 26th of September, we're in Bristol with Mostly Media. And on the 17th of October, we're in Manchester with Vega hosting. These are all open. Just click on the links that are there. They're in the portal, or they'll be in our events email. So they're open for registration now. We've also continuing with our sort of new business mini roundtable series. These are also hopefully in the chat. I said Bath. Sorry, Alex. So we've got the roundtable series that are sort of helping agencies, and they get about 6 to 8 people in a room, sharing their challenges and sort of with experts advising them. These are on a monthly basis, and the next one is they're on our roundtable series and portal and the events email. The next one's on the 20th of September, and that's about product marketing and productizing your agency. And the next BD Club is on the 13th of November, and we'll keep you posted on the topic close to the day. Thank you all, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you,
opportunity.
Marcus.
Lovely to meet you all. Good luck with it all.